Well, what's the crack, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Buckshot for Friday the 11th. It is the 11th. Welcome, everybody. The Patreons, of course, got the ad-free early access version of this last night. Oh, by Jesus Christ, they did. We have a live show. If you were thinking of being a Patreon, we have a live show this Sunday evening. We're going to be all jumping on Zoom, having a sup of tea, sup of drink, whatever you want. Jump on. $3 hairs a month. Actually, there's the yearly one that people do as well, and I think that gives you like a month or two off as a cut price. I don't know, it's $3 a month. I don't know, you get all that extra stuff and you get live shows and whatnot, so you know, fair play to me. Mighty stuff. Oh Jesus, just the weekend, lads. Oh listen, my new club, our new club, myself, my darling wife, who is running it with me, she's kind of doing all the actual smart stuff and whatnot, but we are nearly sold out. I'd say as I record this, we possibly are sold out of the opening night on the 19th. If there's a couple of tickets left, have a gander down the show notes. Everything else is in there too, the Patreon stuff and how to sign up to that, and everything is in there in the one link. But we are back again on the 29th with John Cleary. The 29th of December with John Cleary. That weird, the taint of Christmas, as I like to call it. It's the bit between Christmas and New Year's, and you don't know what to do, and you're kind of going, I don't know. Well, jump in your car, come stay with me, i.e. book a room in Care, and come stay in Care for the night. The new home of Irish comedy. That's right, I'm saying it that boldly. Yes, sure, there are many established clubs for the longest time in all the cities around Ireland, but by Jesus Christ, we are establishing comedy. I mean, it's helping that, you know, it's well known. There's a lot of funny fuckers around, i.e. the two Johnnies and myself are living there. But this is going to be a banger of a night. Like I said, the first one's pretty much sold out. We're going to have John Cleary on the second one. And roll on, then on. Thank you very much, everybody who has come to shows so far. I'm brilliant. I'm going to have Clattered. The special is going to be out over the Christmas. It's going to be... there'll be a little fee on it. I'm going to put it out as a... And yeah, you can sit the whole family around. It'll be much cheaper than actually buying a ticket and coming to the show, but we shot it so class for my special in Galway at the Comedy Festival. I'm very, very excited for people to see it. We're going to be cutting it together over December and putting it out for something to do over Christmas, to get an old taste of Irish stand-up comedy at its rawest, and just it looks so good. I'm very, very excited. So that's all really the news about all that. So you know what, if you want to become a Patreon, if you are listening on Spotify, make sure and hit subscribe. It's your very first time going, I'm subscribing now, and that's that. Hit subscribe, hit the bell so it actually alerts you on your phone. And if you can leave 5 stars, you know, please do. If you're listening on Apple, I think you'd leave a comment. If you can't, if you don't want to do any of it, just screen grab it and go, class, pure class, love this, and share it on whatever social platform you want. Buckshot Podcast, you'll find it everywhere. Or just tag me, Tom O'Mahony Comedy. If, you know, I'm not shy. It's everywhere. Talk about it. Tell everybody about Buckshot. Do you know, the bigger the family, the better. Right. There's a load of other gigs and stuff coming up and all the rest of it, so I tend to post that on my story, so follow me over there as well. I've just me doing gigs around the place. I think as you hear this, I'll be in Wicklow tonight. I'm actually hosting a show with the mighty Emma Doran's on with me. I know Jim Elliott's on. Who else is on? Is Cormac Moore on? It's a banger of a lineup anyway, I don't mind saying. And it's a great spot. I remember hosting a show there before with Willie White and Stephen Ryan, and it was a mighty night. I'll be the Lord Jesus, Wicklow people. So I'm there tonight as you would hear this. And then I'm loads of other places around the place. Anyway, moving on to today's guest. We have been proper friends. Not just comedy friends, but proper good friends for the longest time. He's an absolute legend. The opening 5 minutes of this episode are amazing. In that, if you knew Mark before and what Mark looks like now in the surgery he's gotten done on his back, phenomenal stuff. I'm so chuffed for him. The fact that his voice even sounds different because of the way his head has been repositioned with all his spinal surgery. I'm absolutely chuffed for the guy. Plus, he's one of the most down-to-earth, genuine hilarious. Like, he could be hilarious if he wasn't actually a stand-up. And thankfully he is a stand-up, because he brings that genuine strap-in kind of comedy. the second he steps on stage. But this was class. This was an absolute joy to sit down and chat with my very good friend, Mark Doheny. Finally, we got Mark Doheny on board. How are you keeping, Mark?
Not so bad, Tom, and yourself? How are you?
Class. We were just for a split second talking because the last time I saw you, it was clattered at Kavanagh's, and you were going for a lot of people will know of you or whatever, but I'm flabbergasted at the change in your voice and everything. Like, it's unbelievable because Mark he was having surgery done.
Yeah,
based on an injury.
Small spot of spinal surgery, like just just a little bit of it, yeah. But
so explain it to me, because you explained it to me, and I was like, you may be, as the fella says, trying to teach a fucking pig about driving a Honda 50. Like, it was right. So you're straightening out the fucking rebar, is what you were telling me, basically. Like
it wasn't far off that. Like, it was getting a chunk of steel bar and sticking it in where the deformed spine was. But yeah, I suppose the technical term was it was a T4 to C2 spinal surgery. So from the middle of the back up to the second or third vertebrae in the neck, and they cut away a wedge from the bone and put in a few titanium rods, and then reattach each vertebrae from that point up. So they fuse it in position, but gets kind of blood flow back into what's left. So that was the gist of it.
So
and
so is there? So how many vertebrae? How many vertebrae is in there? Is it 33 or 32 in the back?
I'm still not entirely sure, to be honest with you, Tom. I know the ones that aren't fixed, and I know the ones that are done up, but that's about the extent of it. So yeah, it was from the thoracic spine. I think all bar 3 of them were done, and then there's I think 2 in the neck not fused. They're kind of the ones right at the base of the head, but other than that, there's pins and a scar the rest of the way up. So
that's nearly 3/4 of your spine has been fused to the bar.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I think there's 29 steel rods in it or something. So I'll have to be careful I don't get scrapped, because there might be a bit of value in it at this stage. But
only you would say something like that. But what I'm blown away by is immediate, like, I can see your neck and everything, because it had brought your head right forward, and you're after.
I was fully locked in a fuse forward. Yeah. So yeah, I probably about 5 or 6 years ago, it was very noticeable. Up to that, it was heading that way, but I suppose I didn't notice. I always had back issues, but I put it down to wear and tear and not really being the best of mind of myself. But about 5 years ago, it was obvious it was very heavily locked in. Yeah, I'd kind of lost the horizon. Like, I went in to the surgeon, I think it was March, and he asked me to look up out through a window and what could I see in the building across the road, and I couldn't even see the building across the road, to be honest about it. So that was kind of the gist of time for action. So
and that's a great description of it. I'd lost the horizon, because I had noticed, because I've known you 12 years, like, what I had noticed that you were always a bit taller than me anyway, but you started to then look out. We were nearly the same fucking height for a finish, like, you know.
I'd say you were gone past me. I'd say most were.
The fucking hair maybe had, but not the actual my actual head.
Well, I remember going to a reunion for a hurling team, and lads that I was taller than were kind of looking down at me and said, "Something's gone wrong here." On just a basic level, there's a reason he was shoved quarterback and I was full, but I couldn't see it then. But yeah, that was.
And was it an injury, or was it just your spine was going that way regardless?
I think it was a combination. I have an underlying kind of health thing, ankylosing spondylitis, I think it's called.
Yeah,
There was
yeah,
natural
yeah.
curvature. But then I had a couple of car crashes. I think about 7 years ago, around about this time of the year, I fell asleep coming back from a gig up the country and went into the barrier near junction 14
Oh.
on the way down, and woke up as I was hitting it. But strangely walked out of it and went to work the following morning and did a gig the following night. That sort of, wouldn't have been the best of mind of myself. But I didn't think it was too bad at the time. And And then a while after that, maybe 2 years after that, Chris Kent was in Kavanagh's and I was doing warm up. And I decided to swan dive backways on the stage and broke my tailbone. So
Jesus
they were kind
Christ.
of two of the contributing factors to accelerating it, I think.
Jesus.
But,
Man with spinal issue decides to fucking swan dive off the fucking stage in Kavanagh's.
well, like you know PJ from the pub, like, but I remember he was like he got a right laugh and probably got more laughs than I ever got in Kavanagh's on stage from showing the video of me swan diving backways on the one step stage. So yeah, it was yeah, they were a couple of the misadventures.
Sweet jeez. Well, it's absolutely fucking class. I can't believe I can see your neck. Do you know what I mean? You've actually got a nice bit of stubble on your neck. Like it's because
Yeah,
you know when you've just become accustomed to a thing. Like, you know what I mean? If a fucking roof was wonky on a house, you just grow used to it. But the next thing somebody straightens up the fucking roof and you're like, fuck me. Fuck it. I can't wait to see the height of you. That's the main thing. I can't wait to see how tall you've gotten. But
yeah.
2.5 inches. Mark, a lot of fellas would fucking spend a lot of money for 2.5 inches, I tell you.
But unfortunately, it's all in this area, you know. I
I've got neck envy.
But so we're trying to shape it now because I got used to years of not having to worry about tying up a tie or any of that stuff, you know. But it's kind of it's harder to be scruffy now when there's no excuse for it. But
That's all. But so how long? Because how long are you doing stand up? Because you're doing it as long as I can remember, anyway. Like,
maybe around about the same time, I think. Like I know I entered So I Think You're Funny in 2009, I think, and I went over that year. And I wasn't long at it. I think I might have done a gig for Tony Ferns a little while before that and naively said, sure, I'm new to this, I'll stick in an elementary. So that was around about 2009. And then I started probably doing Kavanagh's around about 2011 or so. Kind of, yeah. So around the same time as yourself, I'd say maybe you're a little bit longer.
possibly, yeah. Do you know what? Years just start to fucking blend into each other.
Well, the last three don't count. So, you know, I could be way out and then, you know, someone will call me a liar and I'll go, fair enough. But wouldn't be the first time. So
I know, yeah, because I was because like you're associated with Kevin's, and I said it was actually I was telling somebody the other night. Who was it? Brian Gallagher. We were walking back from a gig the other night, and we were just, as comedians do, you're talking about fucking gigs and whatever, and just I said, you know what? I probably paid the best compliment I could, like, because I was saying you had opened for me in Clattered or whatever the night in Kavanagh's, but I paid probably the best compliment I could to Booker in PJ that night, and that I described him as being the least weird bloke in booking comedy, and even he was delighted. That was the top. That was the top fucking thing you could say about a booker in comedy. Like,
yeah, no, like in fairness, you know, it is a kind of, you know, a unique spot in some ways. Like, you know, you kind of turn up and there's no hassle. It's just like set and ready to go. And, you know, whether there's a full crowd in it or not so full a crowd, it has no bearing on how good or bad a gig is because there's been quite ones in there, like the mad ones, that were, you know, I remember doing like the Howls one year in it with Max Savage and
oh
like the entire
jeez.
front row, 2 rows left. And I would say it was one of the best gigs in it, like just on account of the fact like we rarely had walkouts, but I don't know what happened. It was nothing to do with Dave on the particular night. I think it was just too full and warm, and people were like, "I think I'll migrate downstairs." But yeah, that was
Yeah, because I remember did we do a late show in there one night for the Halloween Howls,
we
and
did, yeah.
it was the sweatiest, and it was a gig had just happened in there with Bernard, I think.
It
And
was, yeah. There was one off, one on, yeah, and yeah. There was a few of them that, yeah, the second gig in particular, just even the staff with the drunkenness, you know, it was difficult to migrate.
I was I can only remember. I can remember it was
Sorry, 7-year-old wandering in the background, but sure, she's
I
all
love
right.
that. This is like BBC or Sky or something, just a child. That's hence why I'm out in the shade. I'm out in the shade, Mark. It's because I would have a 3-year-old climbing up on top of me and then a dog up the other side of me. Like, it's just there isn't
I'll
there's
have to invest. I'll have to invest in the shed. I think that's the nuts and bolts of it. But
Well, it literally, like, it is a studio, built studio, but it has turned into, like, there's a workbench over to the side there, just so Tom can be out here by himself. Just, do you know what I mean? There's always a need for a place. But I remember that night, like, there's something about, like, Midlands people, like, they're humble, quiet people, but by fuck when they get drink into them. That night, I remember the heat hadn't left the room at all, and some people had stayed, and then a rake more people came in, and it was me. I was a Willie White, and
And Tom stayed, I think,
Tom
possibly.
stayed, and Shroud stayed was fucking full to the fucking gills with everything. Like, the cunt, like, he was up there, and yeah, it's been a fucking Willie was struggling, and I think just the scumbag came out in me, and I just started shouting and roaring at people. And they kind of appreciated it. They just got on board and went, oh, all right, fair enough. He's just,
Oh, they would love that. Yeah, that's probably the highlight of the weekend for them down there, getting abused from the stage. But that was a weird gig because I had to pick Tom Stayed up coming from Galway on the train, and I went over to Port Arlington station to pick him up. And I think, I don't know. I don't know what I looked like, to be honest with you, at the time, because I remember him ringing his agent going, some weird neck motherfucker just picked me up in the car park at the station. And I couldn't argue it. It was accurate, to be fair. But uh, I delivered him to the gig anyway, but that was about the height of it.
He's a bollocks, like, but do you know what? You should send Stade a picture now. We should fucking screen grab this and send it to the fucker. But he's out of his fucking chalk anyway. But in fairness, he was appreciative of that night. I remember he was full of fucking everything. And he said, yo, Tommy, that was a great set. I gotta get you over to support me. And it was like, yeah, whatever. And if whatever must have twanged in that brain of his, about 3 months later, he rang me out of the fucking blue and said asked if I wanted to come over and do a couple of nights with him in Edinburgh, Glasgow, and Liverpool. But he rang me. Like, I was having my porridge, Mark, at fucking 7 o'clock in the morning. And I wasn't flying till like 12 o'clock. And this mad fucker, he texted me it must have been 6. It must have been 6 or 7 o'clock. Text me what kind of beer I liked. He was heading to the shop early. You're like, well, that is very courteous of you, and it's very polite. But what in the name of fuck? Can you imagine getting a text on a Wednesday? What's your favorite beer? I'm going to pick it up for you at 6:30. I mean, in one way it's class, but in another way you're kind of going, you might have a problem.
Yeah, well, I suppose maybe there was a point in my 20s when maybe that might have been a regular shopping item, but it's more likely to be animal bars or Liga at this stage. So yeah, I don't know.
What age did? Oh, so you have a 7-year-old rambling around. What age is the other one?
11, yeah.
Oh,
so
not so bad. Not so bad.
Yeah.
At least you can talk to and does the 11-year-old like you? Like, because I could see my fella. He's sound at the minute. He's 3, but I have a funny feeling I'm going to be a thundering bollocks by age 10, 9, 10.
Well, I suppose the benefit I have is I'm the step mark. So, like, there's no kind of real desire to, I'm not viewed as any sort of parental authority.
Okay, well, that's great. That's
Yeah.
class.
It is, yeah. No, it's good. It's good. A lot to be said for it, to be honest with you. I know some fathers who would probably actively engage with that sort of setup. But yeah, no, it's like, yeah, no, it's good. Like, they have their mom and their dad, and they have their Mark as well. So I'm handy for picking up magazines, and reasonably good for checking to make sure they're fed and stuff like that. But
I like that reasonably fucking well. You're like, you speak. I know you like, you can't talk about, like, you work in politics and you can't really talk too much about it, but because you always have the inside track.
just to clarify now, I work in the civil service. I don't work in politics, so yeah.
Sorry,
just in case people be switching off in droves, it's not. It's far from as interesting as that, but yeah. So
well, you've told me a couple of fucking interesting roles that you had at different points. It was like, now I'm sure on a day-to-day basis it was fucking withering or whatever, to like every job is, but still you were telling me things going, huh? What the fuck? Like,
I've moved apartments a few times, but yeah, so I've been around a bit, but yeah, I wouldn't be. Yeah, it's look, that's the benefit. Is there's good and bad in civil service. You can have, you can spend your whole life in the one office, or there's plenty of scope for moving departments. So I've worked from immigration to part of the court service, and currently in enterprise, and yeah, so you get a mixture.
Because you've worked direct for politicians though as well, though, haven't you? Pretty much answered the phone and gone, no, he's not in.
Well, no, we don't answer the phone now. It's just emails. We'll give a stock response. But yeah, no, we do. No. In fairness, yeah, I work with a minister, a couple of junior ministers, and they're all very good. That's probably the line. To,
Jesus Christ, Mark. You'd actually paused before you said,
no. In fairness, look, it's a tough job. I mean, I wouldn't go
oh, it's
into
a
it. Like,
freak of a job. I would no more go
yeah,
into it.
no, no. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be the most political. Like I was,
Yeah,
was
that's
involved in.
actually.
I just get on with it. There's a job to do, and you kind of. And I think most in the civil service are the same. Like, we have restrictions on getting involved in politics, but most of us, wouldn't be bothered. I don't think if we could. It's just kind of get in and do your job in the day is try and do some bit of value going home and clocking off in the evening. But yeah, it's that.
And we're because I know I'm bouncing around, but it's just my brain is. Didn't we? Do you know sometimes you think of a gig and you go, "Did I fucking dream that, or did it happen?" Did we do a gig in? Was it a Abbey Leaks one night, and
We did.
a priest showed up?
Yeah, he showed up for the raffle.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and left after he didn't win. I think quite, or maybe he did win but wasn't happy with what he won. I can't remember. There was some storm out, from what I remember. But that was a fundraiser gig for I want to say for like a community walking track around the field.
I think
Um,
you.
um,
Yeah, that sounds very familiar now that you just said it. But I think the general consensus, obviously, was over the raffle he walked out because I think the general consensus was over my swearing, your swearing, and I don't think he got to Totally Wired. But he definitely wouldn't have hung around for that.
he was definitely gone before Totally Wired. I think that would be fair to say. But yeah, I think that like it was a reasonably good gig from what I remember. Which for some reason started with Pat McDonnell and people asking about 10 minutes in, was that your man from Father Ted? And kind of audible kind of interaction at the back of the room. And then the raffle took, I would say, probably 25 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was certainly an unconventional, but a good fundraiser, like, but I suppose you've done so many of them as well. Like there was a while, but I used to do race nights,
I remember that.
particularly in the Catholics, and like all sorts. Like we ran a race night for a soccer club one night, and they ran out of races. They printed 12 cards, and they had 10 races, and they were that drunk. I played the first two races again, um, and lads were still betting on them. At the time, I won't say what club it was, but yeah, their on field success was probably reflected in their lack of attention to detail on the form of the races. But yeah, that yeah. So like weird gigs, and then I remember getting John Cleary for a union gig in work one time. We had a civil service conference in Galway, and I
Perfect,
got
man.
John
Yeah.
down for it, and he'd sort of forgotten about it, and then he rang me and was like, "Did we have something down for tonight?" And I said, "Yeah, if you're in Sligo, like it's only up the road." So he did that, and like spent the entire gig slagging off civil servants, and then went, "This wasn't a civil service union gig or anything, was it?" Because that was a bit hit and miss with some of them. But I said no, but they loved it, to be honest with you. So yeah, let's it on.
Yeah, no fucking doubt, Cleary, because like you're the one fella. Like most fellas will text you going, "Yeah, I might have a gig in a pub here or whatever," but you will text me with these, like, they'll be the most bizarre, convoluted, strange. Like, now there's a crowd. They're a different branch of the fire service now, Tom, and they might be going for, and it's just coming out. And you do how all the obviously they're civil servants to to one degree or another, but you seem to
It's
always.
I don't know. Like it's weird. I picked up like I think the weirdest gig I did was there was some lad running for election one time, and we did a gig first, and I had Brian Moss, who used to be on Tip FM and did a
Yeah,
bit of
yeah, yeah.
comedy, and I don't know, was it Ed Salmon or someone, and we did the gig, and midway through, like I think there had been almost a kind of an opinion poll that came out and said he was like destined not to win the election, and we were midway through on stage at the time. So that was an awkward scenario because I had to bring him on to finish. Like he came on and did a few minutes at the end of it. So that's one of the weirder gigs. Not a bad gig, but yeah. And then I did a few stuff with the Queen of the Land a few times with Bernard O'Shea, and they were interesting gigs. mainly on account of the fact that I kept forgetting that there was like 7 different Cork roses or whatever they're called, queens, like Immokalee and all these places I'd never heard of, and I just assumed if I didn't recognise the area that they were from Cork. Um,
What's
yeah,
Queen of the Land again? Like, is that a Rosa Tralee or is it a Keller Housewife of the Year award?
it's like Mochra na Firma, one of their 3 beauty contests a year, and I would use the word loosely, um, uh, not in terms of the fact that it like it's not a case that I'm in any way disparaging the girls, but there's like a full formal interview as part of the process. Like, I'm not talking a 10 minutes on stage. I think they take them off at some stage in the Saturday and do 45 minutes of like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? It almost seems like a job simulation exercise. But yeah, so like they're always in Tullamore. It's always in the Bridge House or one of the hotels in Tullamore. Like they're good gigs. Like they have an event on the Friday night and great crack, and like Mocker crowd are good crack generally. But yeah, like the gig on the Friday night's good crack, and then the business starts on the Saturday, so you kind of get the best of the.
Because that was the thing. Because to explain Mochra and Firma, because there's a world of people listen to this that aren't from Ireland at all.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a farmers' association, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Well, Young Farmers of Ireland or whatever it was, and like I think that like young being under 45 or whatever upper age limit they have these days. Oh well, like with road frontage or a decent tractor, yeah, you'd be beating them off. But yeah, so like it's mostly where primary school teachers meet farmers. I would say is probably the best description of it.
If ever, I mean, they could just call it the Coppers Festival, like, really, couldn't they? Because that's essentially, it's just an extension of what happens in Coppers, like.
It's the spiritual home of it, really. They should move it up to Coppers at least once and try and host it there. Knowing Brian Jackson, I'd say he'd probably try. He'd be happy to take on the business on a Tuesday night or something. But yeah, no, like that was fun but weird gigs. But like, there's a lot of. I don't know, like I can't remember. I think at some stage I did a wedding.
You didn't.
I did in my naivety. And it was up. I won't go into specifics because I'm sure they're still reliving the horror of the day. But I arrived and there was a squad van taking away several members of, I don't know, the immediate bridal party or the extended bridal party. And your man in reception, when I went in, I said, I'm here for the wedding to do comedy. And he said, I have an envelope for you. If you want to take it and go now, you can. And I kind of went, that's a bit unusual to be offered cash not to go on. But I said, sure, I give it a go. It can't be that bad. But it was that bad.
I was fully sure you were going to say you turned tail and walked out, but you fucker, you went up.
I went on. No,
that was morbid curiosity made you do that. No, that's what that was.
It was, yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. Like I'd driven up and I was like, going, look, sure, I'm up here now. I've had a Supermax. I might as well lash into it. But yeah, I didn't do another one since. So I think I'll leave it. I'll leave that element of the.
Where does a comedian? Because I know Paddy McDonald does them and Willa White do them, but they, them lads would have that kind of style where they be, But where did you stand up like at the fucking days in between the? Or where were you like?
I think they decided to originally I was supposed to be going on before the speeches, which would have been bad enough to extend the speeches by any length of time, but instead I went on at the same time as the cocktail sausages and the chicken,
the goose.
So I was competing with the Goujods, which doesn't go well outside of Dublin in particular. But I think people thought I'd had an episode that was just up talking microphone. To be honest, it probably wasn't a bad description of it.
So, have you any idea what was it? Just pure drink related, or had a fight started, or what? What was the squad?
I never asked. Like, it's like when I used to do the door. If you walked in and some lad was getting carried out in the back of a squad van, you didn't ask questions, just went. I assume it's not good. Be a fun night. But yeah, it was. I never got to the bottom of it, but I got the distinct impression several members of the bride's party in particular were upset, so I left it at that.
This is the thing, like, I never, like, I don't know why I'm so fucking snooty about weddings. I'm just 100% sure they would never go well for me. But I've done so many fucking gigs that were just as brute, couldn't get actually any more fucking brutal. Like, I did one for, called corporate, I suppose, because it was corporate. But there were these, was it a recruitment agency or something? It doesn't matter if they're listening to this because they'll never book me again anyway. But it was booked, and the same lad that does the booking, he has to say he've no idea what he's doing is a fucking understatement. And it was in a room upstairs in a fucking busy cocktail bar in Dublin, and there was no like door. When I say room, all it was like an extension of what would be the landing upstairs. Like, so all the tunes from downstairs were blaring. They had a bit of a microphone going, and there was no real seating area. Like, it was just an area with loads of booths. So people were just kind of huddled around, looking around corners at me. And it was, do you know when you just, like, again, your morbid curiosity, you're like, I'm paid. So it's like, all right, I'll just, but again, they can be such fucking bullshit artists. Like, your man, the head of HR or whatever, he says, nothing's off the table, Tom. Nothing. In fact, here's a few tidbits. I went, these sound like a real fun company, because you'd sometimes meet a real fun company. Turns out, while most of the people work for the company were sound enough to a degree, but yes, upper management, bunch of cunts. Like, your man gave me free reign to go after the boss. Turns out the boss had the biggest ego, this big fat lump of a fucker who thought he was hot shit, because he seemed to hire mostly only women by the looks of things. And he was strutting around with this, and he looked at me like, oh, what are you doing next? Are you doing something here? Because we have a guy doing fire blowing. Are you doing that? What's that? No, I'm here to, and in my head I'm going, oh, I'm delighted with those tidbits. I'm gonna fucking roast you. And, you know, a man would be able to take it. He go, oh, all those are actually true points, and yeah, okay. But as soon as I mentioned the one thing, stormed out. It's like, what the fuck? And then it just, and you'd think, okay, everybody in the room would love that. It just made the place weird. And I looked down at my watch, and I was only like 2 minutes in, and up to 30 minutes in. I'm like, oh fuck. Fuck.
Yeah.
But at the 25-minute mark, I kind of looked at your man and was like, I had him for about 3 minutes in total in the middle. The rest of the time, they'd just gone back to their drinks. And I just kind of looked at your man and was like, I'd say we'll wrap it there, will we? And even he was like, yeah, we'll wrap it there. Yeah. But you're just hating yourself walking out the door. At least you had something at least to tell a story of. Like, there's nothing in that, in the horror of that. Like, it was only that the boss just couldn't. He was just a cunt from the second I walked in the door. Like,
Yeah, well, I'm sure, I suppose we was probably set in the bar tab, so that's why they got panicky when he left out and walked out the room. But,
that's exactly what yeah. But it was like, do you know, there wasn't even any groans. Like, if I slagged you with this, Mark, you'd be rolling on the floor laughing with what I slagged you. Like,
yeah.
I think it was something, like, they were slagging him off for having a Tesla, but he cycles to work because he's too mean. And I said, well, that's a bit fucking on the nose, isn't it? I'm sure that's still be done.
Now, in fairness, with the price of electricity now, I don't know. Maybe he's onto something. Could be.
Maybe, but I couldn't leave that I couldn't leave that where it was. So I went.
No,
I said, so we, whatever the guy's name was, we call him Mark. I said, so Mark, I believe you have a Tesla, but you cycle to work. Well, really, I mean, you have a Tesla, really? I mean, there's much easier ways to tell people you're homosexual. Anyway, laugh along, even if you don't. Your man just stood up and walked out. It's like, ugh, okay, yeah. All right, okay. So this is the vibe of the room, is it? Okay, fair enough. Clearly, it wasn't a very smart joke. It was just a throwaway, silly pub fucking thing to say. You slag the big dog in the room first. He takes it. Everybody else settles in. Nah, your man storms out. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, I haven't done a huge amount of corporates, mainly because I don't get asked. I'll be perfectly honest about it. There's something about me, just I suppose maybe it doesn't really, if they've seen me, they're less likely to bring me on stage, I suspect, with a microphone to have a pop at them. I did do one, and I was told it was members of the Saudi embassy. And a Saudi Arabian comedian was performing, and there was strict segregation going on in the room. It was in the Teachers Club in Dublin. And
yeah.
I did the gig, and like there was women on this side of the room that I couldn't look at directly, Um, and about five lads on this side of the room that I could talk to, but not on like a kind of a cordial level. It was just I could make jokes. So, and at the time, most of my set was based on Midlands humor, so I was kind of down. This is going to be a long 25 minutes or so before the Saudi guy goes on, and yeah, it's like there was a couple of guys at the back of the room who looked like security personnel from an embassy, and a guy sitting in front of them who I figured was embassy staff, and like they were all very cordial. And where do you go with that set? Only I started slagging England, and that went amazingly. They were loving that.
Great.
And then made a reference to Friends, and I had some joke at the time, and then that completely lost. They don't really watch Western TV, I'm guessing. Obviously,
Just,
Friends, wouldn't be flavor of the month out there. And I finished up with probably my cleanest joke, and I just said, I think GDPR had been hardest on people on diets. Every time they Google low-fat meals, they're asked to accept cookies. And
that's a great joke.
it's not the worst. I went with that. It's relatively plain, and that was the one they complained about because apparently a few of them were going to Weight Watchers, and they felt I was picking on them to a certain extent, as if I'm in a position at any stage to be picking on people going to Weight Watchers. But yeah, that was the worst corporate I did, I think. I'm still not sure. I didn't stick around for the Saudi guy because he started talking in quite heated tones, and I went, "This is not the sort of thing you want to be seen walking out of." Just in case, special branch are outside in the car or something. I decided to move at that point.
Yeah, if had you ever seen the documentary The Dissident, I don't think you would have done that fucking gig, to be honest with you, because once them lads get you in a room, you might fucking come back out of it.
I sort of learned afterwards that maybe to ask a little bit of detail about what said gig is, rather than just going, "Sure, I'm in Dublin, I can do that." Yeah, that's fine. I'll stroll across.
But to be fair to you, I mean, at the teachers' club, you're going, all right, yeah, it's. But I mean, I love the notion that like Leash is the Riyadh of fucking like, Saudis. Like said that Saudis would want to stand up full stop, like you know.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, I don't know who many people had turned it down. It would be interesting to know who'd been offered it first before they came to me. But yeah, there was.
But I think because I know you said you're not in politics, but you are like you do have strong country opinions, and that was kind of a thing I wanted to get around to. And I also something that popped into my head. And I have asked a load of people, and it wasn't until over the weekend in Galway that I had it affirmed that Do you remember the Keller Housewife of the Year award?
Oh yeah, Jesus, yeah.
Like I've said it to loads of Dublin people. They're gone, huh? What? Like it's in the bottles of gas. I went exactly.
Yeah.
Bottle like sponsored by, but you'd get a kitchen, wouldn't she? Or what was the?
I don't think it was a full kitchen now. I think they got a cooker initially, like maybe a range
Yes,
master or something like that. But yeah, like it was like I have visions that Derek Davis was the host. I could be wrong on that.
I
It could have been Marty Whelan, but it was that sort of live a tree on the precursor to the Dahi O'Shea show, whatever that's called. Way back in the day, they used to have that on, and I recall like Derek Davis and whoever Telma Mansfield possibly were the two who used to host that. I think they were some way involved, but I certainly recall it, and I remember at some stage someone from Leash was in the final but didn't win it, and people saying she was robbed. And like it was the first time like that had happened outside of a county final or something, where it was like yeah, people genuinely upset that there was some kind of discrimination against the Leash bogger as against the Tipperary bogger in the final.
I know, yeah, it's some other fucking fairness, it was left to us to the most part anyway, wasn't it? It was left to the fucking cultures.
I
Like
don't know that there was many people from even sophisticated areas like Waterford and Cork taking part. I don't know whether their pool was essentially people who would consider the good room something you were waked in, and that was it. I think that might be the entire.
Did you have a
entire
good room growing up?
I don't know. I think
The
maybe
grandmother had a good room, all right.
the grannies would have had one, all right, yeah. But I think by the time they got to kind of our generation, I think it was whatever you could throw a head into was available for use.
Yeah. I must look now that I have it affirmed that it wasn't just madness inside my head. I do need to get to the bottom of it. I might do with McBride. I know McBride was looking for subjects or whatever of the next episode of just we might do a deep dive into the Keller Housewife of the Year
There was
award.
another one, like the tops of the town, like it also sticks in my head around the same time, and it was like clubs and firms used to enter. Like Aircom would have a variety show.
Yeah.
Like it's that sort of era, but like in fairness, that was probably not the worst ticket in the world. Probably started a lot of bad comedians, I'd say. Going, I won the tops of the town in 1977, so I'm allowed to make
Yes.
that speech.
Holy shit, yeah. Tops of the top. Fucking hell. Because there was like I don't know, have a lot of the lovely girls competitions kind of fizzled away because there was the Fair Care and there was she was the Pride of Tipperary as well. Like I knew a couple of girls that had won either one, like, but they all have seemed to kind of fizzle away. Is that a woke scenario? I think they should bring it back.
I
Like,
think there's like there used to be like Blue Jean Queen was another
yes,
one
was that in
I
Cavan?
recall.
No,
I don't know where it was, to be honest
no,
with
that
you.
was the Blue Jean Festival because
Blue Jean Festival.
they love country up there.
Yeah. Country music, and well, to be fair, we're all guilty of that. I think once to go
you
outside the
need
pale.
you need to only look at the ticket numbers that were sold for fucking people. Like, I don't think anybody loves country music. Like, somebody had said, some dope, of course, had said it on some, either it was a clip that popped up from a TV show, whether it was a 6 o'clock, and they were like, I mean, how do you know? Like, nobody listens to Garth Brooks. Like, he's not on the radio, and you're like, oh, you don't understand how country music works. It doesn't have to be on the fucking radio.
No,
Trust
no.
me.
And like if you want the clientele to follow you, like the clientele that will go and buy a DVD or a T-shirt, and literally will buy all the merch. The ideal group to tap into if there was some way of doing a crossover. And in
Oh,
fairness, we both look like we could be in various country bands, to be honest with you.
we actually do.
If the comedy doesn't take off, like, I mean, I can't sing either, but like that Lord Hira just seems like it's crying out for, someone that's willing to commit to the dance routine, if anything.
I've fucking been saying it. I was trying to convince. I remember I saw one time I was in the Lucan Spa Hotel, which has neither fucking spa nor, and it's only barely a hotel, but I see, was it Jimmy no, it wasn't. It was some Irish country music star, and they pulled in a fucking Metallica sized fucking bus with a
Yeah,
fucking rig behind it, with full emblazoned, like, their face, the name, the whole lot. Like, we're talking brand new, 400,000 euros worth of fucking machinery just pulled into maybe 300,000 euros worth of machinery just pulled in, full to the gills with gear, maybe 6 people working. And you're like,
yeah.
and you will never be in the charts. You'll never be played on a popular radio station, but you, motherfucker, are making bank that nobody knows about.
No mortgage there, I can guarantee you that much.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
Like, I saw it then. I remember I talked about it's just my fascination more so with it's underbelly is the wrong, but the 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 subculture. I suppose subculture is wrong too, but it is subculture to the popular culture. But I remember I was doing a horrendous gig down in the INEC. I don't know, did I ever tell you? You know Cornelius O'Sullivan from Cork?
I do. Con,
And
yeah. I knew him when he was still Con. I don't know where this Cornelius came out of.
nor right. Just and he's in my phone as Con, but I think he's the fucker's dodging text. That's what he's fucking doing, like. But myself, himself, and Ronan Grace. Remember Ronan Grace? We were doing a
I do.
gig,
I do. I do.
Grumpy Ronan, and we went down to do the INEC. Now, I said do the INEC. We were doing the back bar. And what it was is just a gig. We had no business, like all these gigs, Mark. We had no fucking business doing comedy there. Do you know what I mean? Forcing this shit down people's necks who hadn't fucking. And I recognized the girls that were on the door to the main, the main arena. I went to school with one of them, and I said, Jesus, I said, what are you doing here? And they were like, these just hundreds of people were passing by, and they were just stamping their hand. And I was like, what's the crack? And they were like, oh, it's a country music weekend. Like, so people buy a ticket and they'd see 5 acts, probably the same 5 acts each night for 2 nights, and they'd get put up at the hotel. And I was like, oh, fuck, cool. How much is a ticket to something like that? And this has to be 10 years ago, 11 years ago, maybe. And it was like, 180 or 200 quid. And that was just a ticket.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
this was a full INEC arena, like thousands of people.
Thousands of people. Yeah, no, I don't doubt it for a second. There's a lad at home, and he doesn't drink. He'll drive up whoever his particular band at the minute is, or whoever he's Nathan Carter or whoever, and he goes up and he brings about 6 shirts for the night. And he goes out, he's dancing that much and sweating that much that he swaps shirt and might change the jeans at some point in the night out in the car. And he's not alone in doing this. He like goes for it hell for leather. And like, he's driving and looking for a wife this 20 years. And like, I don't know whether he's driving in the right places or what, but he's still driving. So, but like, I mean, like, the ploughing championships is probably a nice cataclysm of their fans, and I know you've done stuff with the ploughing over the years. I've done a few bits as well, and like that's kind of our people on a grand scale. Like if we can't tap into the Farmers Journal or the ploughing championships, we're at nothing trying to go for sophisticated humour in Dublin 4.
The crossover between you doing something at the ploughing with Richie Kavanagh next door or whatever, or Seamus Moore across the way, and then the following night you're doing the Teachers Club with a gang of lads from the south. You ever see the Venn diagram does not touch there, like.
Well, like before I ever started doing comedy, I used to do bars and doors down home. Like I did it Boris and Ostry, did the bar for years, and then the rugby club in Rosgray and Grant's Hotel, I was doing the door. And I'd say some of the maddest experiences and the funniest things I've ever seen in my life happened on the door or in that pub. By comparison with comedy. But we went one year, the lads that owned the hotel at the time in Boris, they were got ambitious and they got two bars in the ploughing championships in Balacolla, and they decided to book Richie Kavanagh to do both bars. So he'd do a gig in one, break for 15 minutes and go across and gig across the hallway. And then
Right.
I and about 4 other bar staff were moved from venue to venue each time he was on. So for 3 days solid, I listened to Richie Kavanagh sing the same 7 songs. And the last day I was having a couple of pints around about 2:00 on the Thursday. And he came over and said, "You've been really enjoying that for the week. There's a DVD." And I said, "No offense now, but would you take that away quickly before I forget that it's a..." Yeah, so no.
With those lads, like they've unashamedly tapped into it. Like they've tapped into it between, and Seamus Moore has tapped into it. And as you told me, like they might stick an extra song or a new song on the CD, and then that's what they'll stamp out for the following year. Like, and it'll be a song about Gates or a song about fucking Honda 50s or the Yamaha 90 just to fucking update it. And lo and behold, people will buy it again.
I tell you, I knew when the pandemic had took a bit of hold when I saw Seamus Moore, the JCB man, accepting Revolut. That's the ploughing championships. If ever there's a move to cashless, that's that. But
the conspiracy theorists now will go fucking bananas when they hear that. That poor old Seamus Moore switched to fucking Revolut. But I know I spoke to his, I don't know, do you know Graham Merrigan? Do you remember Danny Murray? Danny fucking 100%.
Yeah.
He did comedy before from Ballybrack. The two boys have a great podcast called the WTS podcast. What's the story? And Graham he'd be a staunch Republican, like, you know what I mean? Staunch Republican. But I tried to bring him kind of around to the way, and he's like a lovely fella, but tried to bring him around to the way of thinking. He's liberal, but he was hard going after. Do you remember your man? He was kind of an American politician. He was going for politics in Ireland. Wealthy fella, and he was kind of a Trump-esque in his ways, like he was quite fucking right wing, the shit he come out with, like. And
I know who you're talking about, but I won't name him because I would be a fear we're verging into the old political. But was it Ganley? I think possibly
Ganley, but the simple, we'll dip in and out of it very quickly, because the simple story was that it was nearly a snapshot in, I wonder how people think about, especially rural, not just country town people, but rural people, in that Ganley he was out of order, some of the stuff he was coming out with, but what Graham was going, which dude, the fucking country fucking bumpkin siding with this fella. I said, but you know what he did? I said that that you can't wrap your fucking head around is that he went down to him. You won't catch any of the people you support in the Dáil going down to him and
Yeah.
speaking directly to him. That's why, and you can't, and they're playing the numbers game. I understand why they wouldn't, because there's a million people in Dublin. Why would you go to fucking Thurles? Do you know what I mean? But he took the outside fucking lane and started trying to scoop up all the country folk, and all they wanted to be was listened to. And he's like, I said, no, they're people too. They're people too. And he's going to agree with anything they have issues with. If they're having quad bikes and fucking farm machinery stolen, something you won't be able to wrap your fucking head around, and he's saying he'll solve it, then he's their man. I says, but your leaders, you won't find Mary Lou down there. Do you know what I mean? With a pair of wellies on going, give us a look at who robbed your fucking Land Cruiser. Like, do you know? So, and it was kind of a snapshot. You could see him coming around to me. Then he was like, oh yeah, I never really thought about country people as being actual people. Nearly, do you know, it was nearly that, like, do you know, but people don't. They're like, they can scoff at it. Like, I gigged out in Clogheen a couple of months ago. One of the first nights of Clattert. Clogheen, the back of Beyonds in South Tipperary, next stop the mountain. Over the top of it is the fucking Nire Valley into Waterford, like. Nothing next, like. And sold out 2 nights in this place without so much hardly as a fucking poster.
Yeah.
And I remember saying it was in the Laughter Lounge the following week, and I was kind of saying it amongst a couple of comedians and management and stuff, and there wasn't kind of a, you know, in the grave. And I had to kind of pull them up and go, no, they're people too.
Yeah.
You think because these all came to your set venue, like that they're not people, that these fuckers don't, as they're cash richer than most of the people in here. Those people are blue collar people who just, they don't have the time to traipse all the way up here to see this. So when you bring it to them, these lads are working 60-hour weeks. You know what I mean? Hard fucking weeks too, like, you know.
Yeah, no, it's a fact. And like, I suppose that's what Dunleavy tapped into when we were growing up.
Yes.
Like, their market was underrepresented to a large extent. Lads that liked to laugh and loved the skits, and you know what they were selling, you could recognize in the lunatic that lived down the road for you, or you know, if you had some sort of self awareness, it was probably yourself that they were taking off on stage. But yeah, like you know, I don't know that it's a market that's kind of left behind a little bit in some ways, and that like I don't know that there's someone actively cornered or chasing
the two Johnnies probably to a
That's
degree.
probably to a degree.
The boys did it smart in that they scooped them up via sport first, via the GAA. You know what I mean? Because they were viable players themselves, like, you know what I mean? So I suppose that was a handy way of doing it, from scooping people from all. And then of course you write a song about tractors and stuff like that, and now you've cooked. And neither one of the boys are from rural background, like they're from towns, like, you know what I mean?
Townies, yeah. Like it's the same as myself. Like I mean, I grew up like in like a small parish, about 1,000 people, give or take, and there was 400 in the village, and we called them townies. You know, that was
yeah,
that's
the
the
exact same.
background that people can't figure out in Dublin. They're like, "God, you're all countries. What does it matter to us?" But
that's it. Yeah. Well, that's yeah. Also, I suppose the same thing. I could never wrap my head around people in the village up the road. Like, geez, you want to live right alongside each other when, if you go 100 yards that way, you can just be in a field. Why would you want to live right up on top of that fucker? Like, you know, but it was, yeah. And that like that, they were townies too. Like, but I often, but as you said, I don't know from a direct comedic point of view. Now, there's a few in the north, like Mark McCartney now has really gone after it. Like, he's brilliant. But he's come at it from a dark comedy, very, very strange, humorous fucking way. Have you ever come across his stuff?
I haven't. No, I seen a little bit of it maybe at some stage, but no, I wouldn't have seen enough to comment on him really. But
It's you'll know what you're looking at. You know, if you know what I mean. You go,
yeah,
oh yeah, okay, all right, yeah.
can
Like,
recognize that.
there's almost a touch of Trailer Park Boys. It's so white trash to a degree, like, you know what I mean. Like, it's a great lad, but there's a couple of lads now, because I suppose the advent of social media and stuff, good social media, and I was never one for following anything really or being good at it, but I've noticed that TikTok has, anytime I go on to, I'm like, oh, fucking bored of that in 2 seconds. But now it seems to have aligned itself to go, oh, now I know what to give you, Tom. And
Yeah.
they give me exactly what I want to see. You know what I mean? Silly, humorous shit, like cats pushing fucking children off tables and stuff. But there's a great lad, Tig something or other, and a few people have sent me on his videos, doing great stuff. He's definitely from your neck of the woods.
Right.
in that he doesn't pronounce T's. Now you've got your accent has cleaned up a lot since working with these in Dublin. But the
I
people
think it's more since I started going out with the dub. I think it's
oh yeah,
I've had to start occasionally enunciating vowels and T's and H's, but wouldn't I'd only need to be home for about 5 minutes and the accent drops to the extent that, although the one thing I have noticed, and I don't know whether it's the same for the tip accent, but in our house there's several Alexas, and I'm the only person Alexa understands because my flat accent has broken the receptors for everybody else. So no matter how clear and perfect diction the rest of them ask for stuff,
I
it'll
love
take me to come over and go, Alexa, turn on the lights.
I love the fact that she come back with a real flat Midlands or North Tipperary accent going, well, Mark, when you come in.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, it's cleaned up a bit over the years. Although, having said that, a couple of drinks and it's back, or
Oh,
go
sure,
to a GA.
I noticed it even when I'm sitting beside you. We'll be talking for 2 or 3 minutes. Now, I have a South tip accent, so we do pronounce our T's all right, but it's still a fairly ignorant fucking accent by itself. Like, either way, there's no, you know, it's not exactly the most tailored fucking thing. Although I did take pride. We moved our child from South Dublin to South Tipperary, and one of his first words was "wad." It's like,
Universal language.
oh,
That'll work
wad,
everywhere.
wad. Who's that wad over there? I'm like, good lad, good lad. But yeah, I mean, and are you based in Dublin now?
I am. I'm based up in Balbriggan, so I'm up
Oh,
kind
that's
of
right. That's right.
sorry now.
Jeez, I mean, it wouldn't be. Yeah, I mean, Balbriggan is kind of a common place too. Like, I know 2 people now that bought apartments out there. All right, doesn't like you're near the coast road and everything. Like, it's a tasty enough old spot out that, like grub wise and everything out that neck of the woods.
No, we like it. Like, and then like you go out to Knowles only out the road, and like you can kind of get a pint. Or the thing I like about it is we're about 500 meters from the Meath border, so if stuff gets redrawn, I might be able to say I'm not living in Dublin. I don't know. That's the hope at some point.
I love how so many people would love it to go the other way, like for their property prices. Like, and you're just going, oh, fuck it. Fuck it. Would she not just fucking draw me into Meath? I'll take Meath. But no, that's an anomaly in itself, isn't it? No, the fact that it's in County Dublin, but they're fucking red raw country out there.
Oh, proper farmers, like, yeah, you see lads like I was out there. I went to see Fred Cook earlier in the year. Fred and Julie were playing out there,
Yes.
and I was having a few pints in Killian's across the road, and a lad pulled up in a tractor with a yoke on the back of it for topping a field. Came in and had 5 pints, and then went to the gig. And I didn't stick around, but the tractor wasn't there the following morning. That's all I know. So either he was up very early or someone collected him. I don't know, but yeah, it's
Yeah, because it just blew me away. I was still inside Dublin, and yet I remember doing one. I did a couple of gigs out, but it was the first time I was out there, and I see I was walking from the car to the venue. A rake of boys walking with pints from the pub across the road.
yeah.
I was like, but I knew by the walk. I'm looking at the walk, and I recognise that walk. That's not one you'll see on Grafton Street. Where the boys from? And I was thinking they were on a stag or something from somewhere. They're all local boys. I was like,
Yeah.
You're a small enclave of cultures that live in actual Dublin. Fucking hell.
Yeah. They're the lads with all the money now because they sold probably the land that they've built couple of thousand houses on. So they're probably at net worth is north of anyone on Dublin on Dublin Grafton Street.
Anybody. This is what I've tried to say. Like, if you're looking for a man, don't be looking at fellas in their fucking high paying fucking jobs, because that's what them fellas, they got high paying jobs, but they got high paying fucking bills outside of it. What you want is a fella in the check shirt who has as they say, Land Cruiser money. If you've Land Cruiser money, that's fuck you money if ever I heard it. Because if you'll be all right. We've got a fella with a new Land Cruiser, he's doing all right, like, because the bank loves him.
Oh yeah. They're
But
throwing money at him.
You were like I won't keep you for much longer because I know you've work and everything tomorrow. But the we were talking before about the sports podcast. Like it's fucking sports nuts, isn't it? Like in around Leash and even Kavanagh's, I suppose, where you'd be nearly as associated with Kavanagh's as fucking PJ nearly would, the owner fucking place.
I think, like, unfortunately, when I got engaged and moved up to Dublin, I think the big victim was PJ's takings in the pub of a weekend.
You're putting his kids' college fund, I'd say, yeah.
I know I was never quite that at that level, but yeah, probably impacted a small bit on the bottom line. But no, like it. I mean, I like all sports. Like I played badly at anything I tried. To be fair, like
That's an honest appraisal. Most people they won't admit that, but that's absolutely the case.
No, I was the worst player on a lot of teams. I would say probably the best way of describing it. I had uses. I'd stop a lad scoring in hurling, fairly dogged and not the most athletic. Rarely sent off, but could have been sent off in almost every match. Would probably be an accurate description.
I whichever one of it. If if there's ever a moment where I have to give a speech about Mark or introduce Mark, that's actually when I'm rarely sent off, but technically could have been sent off in every game. If there if there was VR or a fucking assistant referees at the time, like in rugby,
Yeah.
he would definitely have gotten fucking whitewash.
Oh, and do you know what? I should have been killed in every match because some of the stuff I said to lads on the pitch, and like I'd be perfectly pleasant, but like off field, but like if I was there to do a job, if it meant going like mental mind games, like I went there. I remember asking one lad, was his mother keeping well one day, and just leave it at that. And he hit me about 5 minutes afterwards because I think he twigged that I was, in some way having a dig at him. But yeah, that was.
That's a nasty enough one, in all fairness, because it's not on the nose at all. Sure, it's not. It's just like, is your mother keeping well? And just leaving it nicely there, like.
It's open. I could I could have met her at a bridge club. I didn't, but I didn't know his mother, to be honest about it. But you're in the heat of the moment, you'd say it. But like I heard, like I'm from one of the clubs in Laois, I suppose Castledown, that like we had a lot of success when we were growing up. So like we were good, like, and then we didn't really realize how good we had it because we haven't had any success for a long number of years. But at like kind of once we got past minor, maybe a little bit under 21, like there was lads that were going to contribute in a positive way, and then there was. I was kind of beckoned towards a junior B team or junior C, depending on the year that was in it. And you can respect your level, so that was my level. I could live with it.
But because you were you were talking to me about a sports podcast at some stage, like.
Oh yeah.
I definitely. I love I love the idea of keeping it light because there's so many fucking sports podcasts that are.
There's so many podcasts that are lads that played the game to a high level or that know something about it. And I have no interest in that because when I go to the pub with my friends, we are not talking from a position of knowledge. If anything, it's just blind prejudice and ill-informed opinions. And that's more crack, to be honest about it.
Way better. That's why, like, if I'm ever like if there's talks of comedy or whatever and cracking, I will never crack if I'm sitting back in a group and I will not be the one cracking the jokes, because you give the floor to the people because you're not. I'm not saying that I'd be, the standard of an intercounty fucking hurler in your group sitting there, but at the same time, somebody who physically got paid at one time to tell jokes is not going to start stealing the thunder of the bloke who has a great one-liner, a great story about a donkey and a fucking dog.
Well, like I at one stage I was running gigs for Larry Corbett in the pub in Thurles.
I remember that. Yeah,
we did it for a while, and like it was. I have to say, like, it was comedy gold. I mean, the man is, aside from being a good hurler, like he's hilarious company. Ideal podcast guest. If you haven't had him on, you should get him on.
Oh yeah, because I've had a few, like the likes of Cummins and Maher and a few more on. Yeah, it must. Jesus, yeah, we'll go after him.
But mighty crack. And so we were doing the gig one night, and like we left the pub, and the following day, I rang him and said, was he happy with the crowd? Like, was there, was the takings okay in the pub? He said, no, it was all good, all good. And he says, I have to go now, Mark, it's my round. And he'd gone to Dublin on the first train. and was drinking in one of the early houses on the quays, like, because this was before 9 o'clock in the morning. And he was retired now, in fairness. I'm not saying anything out of school or anything. Like, it wasn't like he was talking out the following weekend for the county or anything. But yeah, like, it just genuinely a good bloke, but like absolutely hilarious in the best possible way. Not at all guarded in some of the stuff he come out with. But sure, look.
But I think that's why I think people do gravitate to that. And thank Christ there is, and they haven't tried to fucking water it down or whatever, but they leave it kind of raw. Like the likes of John Milan, like he's a fucking, like, Milan never won an RR, like, but at the same time, people fucking, like, and it was a tug on the fucking pitch, but he has a full, he's got a gig with RT now, like, and or on the radio, and it's just purely because of his wild fucking passion. Nobody gives a shit that he's not really the best orator, the best commentator in the world, and he has the most hideous Waterford accent. But you love to hear a fellow who fucking loves hurling. Do you know what I mean? And it's a wild bastard behind it, like.
Yeah. No, it's a fact. No. I suppose, like, some of that tip team were hilarious because, like, John Carroll was out, like, our neck of the woods. Like, he was the far side of the border. I think, like, there was some debate as to whether he was going to play for Leeds or Tipperary, but realistically, he could hurl, so he was going to play for Tipperary. There was no point to say he was going to talk out at a junior level there. But yeah. So, like, I remember we played Rosgrave once in they're the closest club in Tipperary. They're only across the border. We played them once in a practice match, and the match was abandoned after about 5 minutes. And apparently I started the row. I have no recollection of it. As far as I was concerned, I went out, I picked up a ball, and I cleared it. And there was some allegation that I had decapitated some lad playing corner forward. And, like, I don't even think I had been within 20 feet of him. It was mistaken identity.
Right.
I had cousins in Rosgrave, and everyone was piling in on the pitch, and the first I remember was going, "Jeez, I think we were parked at the back of the goal, so I hope the father's car doesn't get the windscreen." It was. Yeah.
But yeah, what I'm saying is, I think I definitely like the idea of a non-expert opinion podcast, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
There's something, I think, there for everybody. Like, you can go and listen to your experts. Like, I listen to, a lot of rugby ones and hurling ones or stuff. But fuck me, I find myself turning off. Like, are we doing stats? Are we? Because, oh, Jesus Christ. And it could be the happiest day in your life. And he was my school's coach, but Alan Quinlan would put you into a fucking coma sometimes. Like it could be, I would just love to see Ireland win the fucking World Cup. Not because I want to see Ireland win the World Cup. I want to hear Alan Quinlan afterwards, because it'll be no fucking good. It'll be, just great all to say. That was there's fucking no spark in the man at all when he's on the. I think it is he's very guarded, and he's conscious of it, because he's a guess who are off it like a wild, like. But I think he's very guarded, and I think as two comedians we don't give a fuck, while talking about anything, like. So I think that's where it can come nicely loose, like when it comes to sports. And there's a rake of sports that I have no fucking idea about either, like. So, and I take great pride in that. I would love to talk about sports I have no idea about. Like cricket, no idea. Even fucking soccer, no proper idea. None.
No. I wouldn't be expert in anything, to be honest with you. I'd be the first to admit it. But if it comes to, like, telling lies about knowing more than I do, excellent. I remember at one stage trying to tell somebody that Ireland was the original world champions in cricket, because I think there was no world championships at the time, and they beat England and declared that they were world champions way back. And I don't know whether it's actually true or
that sounds kind of true. And this is called, I think I heard this from a very, very much a Protestant person called Andrew Maxwell, who likes cricket, and I think he said something along those lines.
Yeah. So I think technically before there was a world championships, we were world champions, and I have told many people that, whether it's true or not. So, if we extrapolate that out onto a podcast, that seems like, our kind of aim going forward.
So when have you like, you're obviously still in recovery and everything, but you're back working, you're back actually at work?
No, I'm back working. Like, it's mostly just, physio and trying to do a few exercises. But yeah, no, it's grand. The hard bit is over. Hopefully, touch wood.
And when are we going to see you back on a stage?
I don't know now. I don't know. I at times I think about I wouldn't mind me back in it, and then I kind of go, well, it's also nice sitting down in front of the TV eating biscuits. So there's an element of that as well. So maybe at some stage in the new year. I'm not booked in pre-Christmas. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I and it's a thing that can create. And I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, everybody's entitled to their tea and bickies, like, but there's nothing like the whole fucking pain in the hole of comedy is the fucking everything that isn't that millisecond after you take the mic and the millisecond after you put the mic in. Everything else is fuck that. Like, fuck it. You know what I mean? You can see why the big names don't even want to talk to anybody beforehand or anything. They just go, just keep my green room quiet. Yeah, and I'm gone afterwards. Thanks, look. You could see why, like, after a while, like, if you had the option of just, talk to the people you do like, but there's a lot of talking to people that you couldn't give one fuck about like this.
And driving an hour and 3/4 to then not care about who you're talking to.
I mean, well, I wish that's all it was these days. Since moving back down to South Tipperary, it's longer than that most fucking nights. Like, but sure, I don't mind. Anyway, I won't keep you another bit because I know you're off you've got work and stuff tomorrow. And are you still tweeting you're not, because you're not commuting from Laois anymore. You're a great fucking angry Twitter guy.
Yeah, that was me for a while. Yeah, lads cutting their toenails on the train at 8:30 in the morning. The real joy. Well, like you say that, but like at least the lad that cut his toenails didn't eat sandwiches, with varying smells early in the morning.
Oh, you cunt. Oh, no.
Salads, onion sandwiches before 8:00 on a train. Like, yeah, no. Commuting is, I mean, if there's one thing to be said for COVID, it stopped some people having to commute for a couple of years. That'll be the best outcome from COVID, I think.
I think you should still find a route to that angry guy, because it was fucking great. I used to love your tweets. I knew one was coming. While on the train, it was physically happening live. Some cunt clipping his fucking toenails on the train here beside me. It was fucking glorious.
And Michael Harding, your man, the author, he said it on the Late Late Show a week or two afterwards.
Did he?
And I doubt that in my 25 Twitter followers that someone shared it with him. So I was wondering, was he on the same train? That's the only thing that went into my head, because he was in Fort Laois around about the same time.
So he verified it. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
No. Some sick men out there, but sure.
That's, I will, till the day I die, I will struggle to have any comfort on any fucking transportation that I'm not fucking driving, to be honest. And I don't think it's a control thing, because I remember herself going, it's just a control thing. I'm like, no, I don't think it is. I think it's just purely if I don't have to deal with, if I'm up the front, I don't have to fucking be looking at cunts breathing on top of me and fucking barefoot around the fucking plane or whatever fucking other carry-on is going on. Like, it's just, I'm not fucking fit for it anymore. But hey, Mark, I can't fucking believe we got you on the podcast. I can't believe you're fucking nearly 3 inches fucking taller than the last time I fucking saw you. That's incredible.
Yeah, you can go on now and say that. Doheny stops after getting some neck on him now. The fucker.
Well, look, I might see you. I don't know when you'll be back down home or what way fucking Christmas will rock up or whatever, but I'm going to be every which way. I'm going to be in Dublin for most of Christmas gigging. So
we'll catch you in Dublin. So we'll catch you before the Christmas anyway, Tom.
Mark, we'll talk again, and we'll get going on our fucking sports podcast.
Yes, good talking to you, man.
Thanks a million, brother. Mind yourself. And my thanks again to Mark. What an absolute legend. Like I said, looks like the two guys are going to be doing a Know Nothing sports podcast. Although Mark would know vastly more about actual sports than I would. I know about one sport really, and that's it. Anyway, keep your ears and eyes peeled for that one. Like I said, keep an eye on the Hill Comedy Club in Cahir. It'll be mostly sold out, but if there's a couple of tickets left, grab them for the 19th of November. But we are back on the 29th of December. And I won't be shy about telling you to keep an eye out for Clathert, the special, when it gets released over Christmas. I'll be posting it and talking about it everywhere, so don't worry about that. And I would greatly appreciate it if a bunch of people bought it. That'd be great. We have a live show for the Patreons this Sunday night, so become a Patreon, hang out with the gang. We're having all fucking shits and giggles. If you are listening on Spotify or whatever platform you're allowed to leave a star rating of whatever, give it 5 and leave us a nice comment. Maybe a screen grab. Tell everybody about it. Get in contact with me if you have any comments on the podcast or you want me to approach anything, because I do, of course, do the Ramble Pod midweek for the Patreons. So if you're thinking, going, this fella don't listen to nothing, I answer everything and anything for the Patreons midweek on the Ramble Pod, which is, you know, another 40-45 minutes of me ranting and answering questions midweek. Another benefit of being a Patreon. Listen, let's go on away, enjoy the rest of the weekend, and I'll talk to you again next week. Get neck and blessing, thanks.